Hello, everyone. This is Criminal Profiler Pat Brown, and this is Dear Profiler Pat. We use some of your questions and ask for advice. I give some advice, and I always hope it helps. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe and check the playlist for the different areas that I do give advice in. And if you want me to answer one of your questions, please do send me an email to profilerpatbrown@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put in Dear Profiler Pat. All right. This question is about should I homeschool? Dear Profiler Pat, I'm going to be moving to another country from the US. One of the issues in the country is lack of quality education, and I'm considering homeschooling my kids, which is permitted there. Is there any advice you can share since you homeschooled your three kids, which I did? I homeschooled my three children all the way through. They're in their 40s now, but I did homeschool them. And I also homeschooled my granddaughter for a year and a half during COVID. So I know a lot about homeschooling. Um, the letter writer says, I was always a good student in advanced placement classes as a kid. Probably did better than me. However, I am not sure if that would translate into being a good homeschooler. Okay, there's a lot of different areas about should you homeschool. The first one is your basic reason for homeschooling. And it could be, is it because you think the school system where you're at is not sufficient? In this particular case, the letter writer says they're going to be in another country and the schooling isn't that good. Well, I don't know. Personally, right now, I don't think the schooling is so great in the US. I don't. And I think a lot of other countries have very good schooling. Certainly, depending on where you are again, depending on where you are. You'll have to look into the exact area you're in. There could be very good public schools, especially in the lower education. Most of them are pretty decent up until maybe they get higher level, and then you got to make sure they get into the better schools. Some schools are, I think, in other countries are way better than the United States system. So you're going to have to actually determine that location by location. And same thing if you're in your own country. Same thing. I checked out the schools when my daughter was small. I went into the first grade class with her to watch, and I stayed there for like an hour or two, and then I got up and left. And the teacher said, if you go right, you can go down and register your daughter in the principal's office. And I said, thank you very much. And I went left and went right out to the parking lot and said, they're never going to get you. They're never going to get you. I didn't like what I saw. A lot of it was the behavior. I didn't like the behavior of the students. I didn't like the way the teacher reacted toward the students. And I'm like, this is not a place I want my child all day long. But that may not be the situation in a school near you. So you have to look at the behavior issues. Is it a type of environment you want your child in? And then you have to look at the educational issues. Do you feel like they're teaching what you want? Like, I'm a big fan of phonics. I don't like when they don't teach phonics. I don't like new math. I think it's nonsense. But that's just me. You might have a different thought on those things, and you might like the style of teaching in the school. So that's important. And if they're not going to be in public school, you have to look at what private schools are in your area. Can you afford them? And also religion is obviously an issue. If you have a particular religion that you would prefer your children to be in a religious school, that again is another issue. If you can't afford the religious school for whatever reasons and you don't want your kids in public school, then you want to teach more religion home, that again would be something you could do. You have to look at culture. Will you be comfortable with your child in the culture of the school? And if you like the culture of the school, then it's great. If you don't like the culture of the school and you feel like you're going to be fighting against it all the time, perhaps you prefer to homeschool. So those are the major ones. You also have to look at particularly to your own child. Some children thrive in a school situation and don't thrive as well at home. Some kids would be better off at home than in a schooling situation. So yeah, you're going to really have to analyze those things to find out what you're comfortable with and what you think can be achieved. Now, saying that, this is a very important thing I want to point out. Stop thinking you have to make this decision for the next 12 years. You don't. Year by year. Many children change schools and change schooling situations. Some people send their children to school and then determine they want to take their child out of school, the school in the area, and they want to homeschool, or they move from a public to a private or private to a public. Some kids, they homeschool and they say enough of this and they send them to school. So everybody, year by year, you can change your mind, unless you're one of these people who's trying to get your child into like I don't know, they have some people feel they have to get the kid into the right school at the very beginning so that they can eventually go through the system and get into the top colleges or something. I never, that was just not something I was into, but some people are, so they want to make sure their kids are at the right school right at the start and all the way through. But in my opinion, year by year, and not all children are alike. There are some families whose one of their children goes to school and the other one stays home because of whatever learning needs they have. So year by year. Now, another question would be, are you capable of doing this? What you seem to be worried about. I want to ask you this question. Nobody seems to really question that they're not capable of teaching a 2-year-old. You get your little book out and you say, oh, look at all the animals. People seem to be pretty good at that. The kids get to 6 years old and suddenly they think they can't teach a 6-year-old. Why would that be? What's so difficult about teaching a 6-year-old? I mean, they're 6. Basic reading, basic math, basic science, basic anything. All of us can, if you can read a book, you can teach. That's what it comes down to. Now, admittedly, sometimes there are subjects which maybe you want more guidance in when you're teaching. Well, then you just get a program. I always use Saxon Math. I love Saxon Math. It is the program I use. I mean, I wouldn't try to teach that without a book. So Saxon Math was the method I used. I taught phonics. I had a couple really great phonics books that taught wonderful phonics, and I used them, and I used games for phonics and a board for phonics. I did all that. That's because I like teaching phonics. Science, I sometimes use little workbooks. Sometimes all kinds of different methods. For history and geography, I love geography. So I would find books that I loved, and then I would sit down and I would teach from those. And then maybe I'd present a movie on some place in the world so they could see what that location in the world looked like. Or we'd go on a field trip. They're small children. That it's not like rocket science to teach them. And you can always use any kind of program you like. Now, some people do what is called unschooling, which is kind of more me, which was I didn't have a set program. I used whatever I felt like. Some people unschool are very, very laid back, and they don't hardly use any materials at all. They just do all kinds of stuff. Everybody's got their way. Then there are people who prefer to use a specific program. They get the entire program, and it comes in a box, and you get math, and you get spelling, and you get writing, and you get handwriting, you get all the things. Some people prefer to have a religious homeschooling program, and they will get it from that particular publisher, and they will use those, and they'll finish first grade, and then they'll do second grade and third grade, whatever. Lots of ways to do things. And there's, of course, a lot of online stuff these days as well one can use, although I personally am never overly fond of doing everything on the internet because more screen time again. But again, there's so many options out there. Really, there's so many. But you do have to find what works for your kid. So I'm pretty sure you can teach your kids. That's not going to be an issue. The only issue is, do you want to? I mean, people sometimes forget that they may not like doing it. They just say, I do not want to do that. My own daughter, she's like, yeah, not me. I do not want to teach at home. She doesn't enjoy doing it. She does a ton of other things with my granddaughter. She does art projects, and she takes her on trips and does all kinds of cool stuff with her. But she doesn't like sitting down and teaching all the school subjects. She's like, yeah, no, not happening. But I enjoy it. I don't mind doing it at all. So you have to decide whether you can stand it. So sometimes it's there. Again, you can start out and you can try it for a year, and then you can go, wow, this is not working. You might only try for half a year and say, it's not working, whatever. But sure, you can do it. It's just, do you want to? And is it the best thing for your child? Depending on what situation you're in. And so I just think, don't worry about a 12-year program. It's not necessary. It really isn't. Only look at what's coming up and A lot, always choices can be made along the way. And you might not even be in a certain location forever. People always think, oh, they're going to go to this school, and then they buy a new house. Somebody gets a new job, and you move someplace else. So the kid's never going to be in that one school anyway. I didn't grow up. I was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Beautiful little town. I loved that place. And then my father one day said, we're going to Virginia. And that was the end of school in Ridgewood, New Jersey. So I was someplace else. And that happens to a lot of people. So don't think in terms of 12 years. Think of what is going to be the best thing next year. What will work for my child? Investigate the schools in your area, see what people have to say, visit them. It's always important to visit them. Language might be an issue if you're in another country. Is it going to be in a different language? Is that going to be good for them or bad for them? I know there's always American schools in different countries, or schools that are bilingual who are focused on a mix of local people and maybe expats, kids that are there. So those schools exist. If you want your child to learn mostly English, but still learn the language of the country you're living in, or maybe you just want your child to be immersed in that language. Let them learn the language, while you learn the language too. So there's so many options, and just check them all out. See if your child is happy when they start experiencing those things, and what works. Again, year by year. I can't stress that enough. I think too many people try to come up with the final answer for the how I'm going to raise my children through the rest of their lives. You don't have to do that. Just look to the next year. And those are my thoughts on this. If you've homeschooled, put your comments below. If you tried to homeschool, didn't like it, put your comments below. If you have any suggestions for a person in whatever situation they're in, whether they're in their own country or they're going to be in another country raising their children, and put your comments below. I'll be curious to hear them. And again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. See you next time.